Let's talk some Texas recruiting. A huge weekend in Austin, and we got Justin Wells from Inside Texas on this video. He's going to take us behind the scenes of all the action. But first, Texas fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel, the best recruiting channel on YouTube. Thank you. All right, let's bring in Justin Wells from Inside Texas, and we're going to hit on some 5 stars right now. Let's go with wide receiver Jaime Ffrench. He's from the state of Florida, had a great unofficial visit to Texas this spring that got things trending in the Horns' direction. This weekend, though, it was his official visit, possibly the last official visit he takes before a decision. We'll see. But what are you hearing on Jaime Ffrench coming out of this one?
Yeah, this was an anticipated trip because the last time Ffrench came to Austin, he left blown away. He left with a new leader, with a new sense of where he could be playing college football. And so this one was a double down event. The fact that KJ Lacey was there, who is really close friends with Ffrench, and I actually caught up with KJ. Those two have been close since the Ryan Williams recruitment, and they talk on almost a regular basis. Kaliq Lockett, fellow 5-star, hung out with Lacey and with Ffrench and with that group as well. Ffrench host was Ryan Wingo, former 5-star out of St. Louis, going to make an impact for the Horns as a freshman in 2024. This was anticipated, and Ffrench, it checked all the boxes. He got to ask every question. He got everything answered. He got to spend more time in Austin, essentially going outside of the facility, get to absorb a lot of the 512, see what Texas has to offer, see all the unique things and unique spots. Got some incredible meals, had a really good time with a lot of players. I know his parents absolutely loved it. They thought Austin really hit the mark. This could potentially be his last official visit before he makes a decision. I think we could see something in July, potentially August. He had mentioned before about his mother's birthday being in August and potentially making a decision then. I wouldn't be surprised if he bumped it up to July. I think it's going to be within that window. I still hold out that I think Texas leads, and I think they've actually padded the lead a little bit with this last OV. But that Ohio State team, that staff is still recruiting him. And they're still going to try to get him on for an official visit this fall. I would not be surprised if he still takes that trip, and that would be after a decision. That would be after a commitment. Just set the floor for what we could expect from Ffrench. I think Texas leads going into his decision, but watch Ohio State. Brian Hartline is a recruiting machine, and he could pop up back in Columbus this fall for an OV. Just going to have to watch.
Yeah, and remember, when he decommitted from Alabama back in early January, Ohio State was the first team that really started trending for Jaime Ffrench coming out of that decommitment. But like you said, a lot has taken place since then. We'll see what happens with Jaime Ffrench. Now, on this show, we talk a lot about the possibility of Texas landing a trio of 5-star wide receivers, and that is Dakorien Moore, Jaime Ffrench, and Kaliq Lockett. And throughout, I've asked Texas fans at various times to get their opinion on this, and it always seems like if there's an odd man out of that trio, it's Kaliq Lockett. But this weekend, the Saxy 5-star was on campus. What did you learn about Kaliq Lockett in Texas heading out of this official visit?
I learned that Kaliq really likes the Longhorns. I first saw Kaliq 3 years ago on campus at DKR before he had an offer, before people really knew who he was. So he's always kind of envisioned himself at Texas. And then, he went through no offers and then 3-star and then a 4-star. Then he earned his way to a 5-star. So he's climbed up the recruiting rankings. We've seen him progressively get better. He told me the biggest thing this weekend was not only hanging out with Lacey and Ffrench and the other recruits. It was that the the players at Texas treated him like he was already a part of the team. He said that they opened him up. They actually, they showed him so many different aspects of being a football player at Texas, not just involving the football program, all the community things they can do, all the places they can go. To him, being closer to home, I think, is a big factor. And I think the thing there too is his parents. Mm-hmm. I think his dad likes Texans. And I think when they go home, and they're actually home right now, when they, get together and they start talking about, when that decision's going to come, and I anticipate that's going to come next month, Texas, I think, is going to be the first team mentioned in this conversation. Does he want to be one of a trio of 5-stars headed to Texas and maybe have to split the ball with a couple of other stud pass catchers? Yeah. Or does he want to be his own wide receiver one and go into a class as his own guy? Alabama is really in this one too. Don't forget that. LSU made a big impression on him on their OV. And Texas A&M is still in the mix as well. And so with Lockett, I think Texas is – I think that's the school – I wouldn't say compromise school. I think Texas is the place that he is – for the last 3 years of really going through an actual recruitment, has always kind of seen himself. Mm-hmm. If Texas gave him the opportunity and gave him the spot and he had a chance to jump into the class, I've always felt like Kaliq would take advantage of that. But like you said, the trio of 3 5-stars in 2024, that's rare. I mean, that is really rare because we know how much guys kind of like to be their own guys, go, pave their own paths. But when you got Arch Manning sitting there telling you what kind of routes he's going to throw and what kind of things you're going to do together, it is really hard to ignore that. And once Arch got in Kaliq's ear and KJ Lacey's in Kaliq's ear, and they've already been talking, I just really like where Texas stands. Go to InsideTexas.com, check out my latest update, my interview with him. But I think the biggest factor was his one-on-one with Sark at the end, because they had a heart-to-heart that I think he really needed to hear. And also his connecting with Lacey, with Ffrench, and how the team just kind of opened up to him and treated him like he was already a part of the Longhorn family. And so for Kaliq, I think that was exactly what he needed, what he wanted to see. And I think his OV stuff is finished, and I think we will see a decision in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Awesome. Good intel there on Kaliq Lockett. Really intriguing stuff. One last 5-star that was on campus that we need to talk about was offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. Moments ago, you spoke with him. I was waiting to get you on while you were waiting to hear from Michael Fasusi. So give us the news. How did his official visit to Texas go?
I've said this before. Michael loves the recruiting process. Like, he really loves it. He sent me a picture yesterday in his Texas uniform. They all take those photos during their OVs. You know what chain he was wearing? It was an On3 Elite Series chain. This guy was ready. He was ready for these photographs.
Right.
And you know what, Josh? You know what's funny? You know who likes Lamborghinis? I like Lamborghinis.
You like Lambos.
I think those are nice cars. You know who really likes Lamborghinis?
Who?
Michael Fasusi. He really likes them. Listen, Fasusi's done the same as the rest of these guys. He has gone through a number of visits. I bet Fasusi's traveled more than the other ones, to be honest with you. I bet he's hit more schools and more places and more opportunities. This was the last one. This was the one he wanted to save for last. I think having his parents there together were huge, especially his mom. His dad, Ebenezer, had been on multiple trips. This was one of the first times that his mom had gone on campus. She loved it. I loved Coach Flood taking photos with him in a Nigerian soccer shirt. So Flood's playing checkers while everyone else is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Like, there were so many points I think they needed to hit. But the big thing was Fasusi one-on-one with Sark. He said that they spent a lot of time with each other yesterday one-on-one, just getting to know each other. Every cycle, Sark wants to get that big 5-star offensive tackle, whether it be Kelvin Banks, Brandon Baker, Michael Fasusi in this class, John Turntine, the 5-star for 2026, wherever. That he makes sure those guys are known, that they are wanted, that they are the hot commodity. And Fasusi is at the very top of that big board. He understands that now. I think Michael Fasusi had talked to me a little bit in Nashville about potentially taking his decision into the season. Then I caught up with him right before he got to Austin this last week. And he said, you know what, I've changed my mind. I'm going to make a call before my senior year starts, probably in August, probably right before two-a-days. And so that's another one that I think Texas makes the most sense there. Listen, Oklahoma has done a great job. Bill Bedenbaugh has built a great relationship with Fasusi. Texas A&M caught up. They made up a lot of slack in that recruitment, and I give credit to the recruiting staff, and namely Joe Hamilton. I think A&M did a good job. Missouri really caught his attention. They've got something building in Columbia, and I think they really caught his attention. But from the start of this relationship with Kyle Flood, which began his freshman year in high school, I think Texas has always been the one school that he mentioned in every interview. He mentioned in every top schools post. He mentioned that's the place he wanted to see. He loved it. He loved that his mom. That, I think, the big factor was his mom, because he's a family kid. And academics are number one with this family, and they will tell you that with an insistence. Texas showed him an elaborate academic plan and presentation and how that's going to benefit him outside of football. Hey, they were already in a good spot with Dad. They hit a home run with Mom. I think Fasusi in Texas just makes too much sense.
I like it. Makes too much sense. We got to see what happens here. A decision could be coming sooner than later on Fasusi. Now, we got to talk about another five-star. He wasn't on campus, but we got to talk about DeCorian Moore. The number one wide receiver in America was off in Eugene, Oregon this weekend, and I wanted to get a little Texas perspective on it. What are you hearing on DeCorian Moore coming out of this Oregon trip?
Yeah, I caught up with his mom as they were headed to the airport, leaving Eugene. And, they've got a long flight home is what she told me. And that in and of itself, I think, summarized the weekend. Oregon did it big. They said Oregon was fantastic. Oregon did it big. They pulled out all the stops, which was expected. An Oregon official visit really is a really good time and an amazing school and place and environment. But at the end of the day, it was going to be, if he stays home, it's Texas. If he leaves, it's Oregon. In that proximity, not to mention his family. We had one of our reporters at Inside Texas, Joe Cook, was at the airport catching some of the Texas OV guys as they take off to go home. And they crossed paths with DeCorian Moore's family that lived in Austin, who just came back from Eugene. They got home before DeCorian and his mother did, which I think is telling. But just understand that I think DeCorian's got a big decision ahead. I think that decision's probably going to happen next month. And I'd give the slightest edge to Texas. I think the fact that they had such an amazing time last weekend, and I think Texas already kind of had a lead before that. They were going to let Oregon woo them. They were going to let Oregon put everything on the table. They did that. I'm going to catch up with DeCorian again this week to get a little bit more, and I'll talk to his family and some sources around that a little bit more. But what I was told is Oregon did it big. They had a wonderful time. They were treated like kings. Rashad Samples absolutely knew what he was doing. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's going to be enough to keep him away from home, because in Austin, those guys can be back in their living room in an hour, whereas they're 3 or 4 hours away on a flight coming in from Oregon. To me, that's a tell in that recruitment.
All right, Texas fans, how are we feeling about the five-star weekend in Austin? Let me know. Comment section below. Fasusi, Lockett, Ffrench, DeCorian Moore. I know he wasn't in Austin, but how are we feeling? Let me know. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.